Good morning, everybody. I am your grateful neighborhood addict named Connor, and this is today's Daily Reflection. July 15th, Pride. For thousands of years, we have been demanding more than our share of security, prestige, and romance. When we seemed to be succeeding, we drank to dream still greater dreams. When we were frustrated, even in part, we drank for oblivion. Never was there enough of what we thought we wanted. In all these strivings, so many of them well-intentioned, our crippling handicap had been our lack of humility. We had lacked the perspective to see that character building and spiritual values had to come first, and that material satisfactions were not the purpose of living. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 71. Time and time again, I approached the seventh step, only to fall back and regroup. Something was missing, and the impact of the step escaped me. What had I overlooked? A single word, read but ignored, the foundation of all the steps, indeed the entire Alcoholics Anonymous program. That word is humbly. I understood my shortcomings. I constantly put tasks off, I angered easily, I felt too much self-pity, and I thought, why me? Then I remembered, pride goeth before the fall, and I eliminated pride from my life. Hi everybody. You guys thought we were getting a break from the humility barrage, didn't ya? Nope, we're just coming at it from another angle today. So I think what the quote is trying to say here is that you can't build on quicksand. And if the foundation is your character, which we are editing and repairing here in step 7, then it only makes sense that those changes become necessary to keep us from slipping back into old patterns of behavior. In this case, pride is framed as a reason we either drank or used, and I don't know about you, but that much is definitely true for me. And then it goes on to make the claim that the entire program of Alcoholics Anonymous is based on one simple word, humility. Now, we can infer from that, if humility is so paramount to recovery, then the opposite must also be true, that pride is paramount to driving our addictions, whether that be to alcohol or to dry goods like me. So addiction recovery. How did my addiction teach me this lesson? Well, when I was in the middle of working a court program and I got caught smoking, I wasn't ready to quit. And that was my pride. Not just the addiction, that was my pride too. And it would have landed me in prison if God didn't intervene. Pride is a hardening, calcifying form of armor that we think protects us and makes us strong. But it's a lie. It's a poor bandage for a bullet hole. Pride makes us weak, stubbornly so, and blinds the heart and the eyes. For me, I had to treat the bullet hole inside of me, and it was God-shaped. I used because I was in pain and couldn't see any other way out, and I didn't care what happened to me as long as the pain stopped. I honestly didn't care if the drugs killed me. And that was my pride blinding my heart and my perspective. I thought it was protecting me from pain and that it made me strong to do whatever I had to do. That was before I knew there was another way. Surrender to God's way. And that takes endless humility. So think about it like this. Humility, which is the only antidote to pride, leads to surrender and then relief. So pride was the underlying character defect, and insisting on continuing doing things my way was the affected behavior or shortcoming that was in the way of finding relief rather than providing it. So let's move on to the steps. Why does today's reading belong here in the 12 steps? Well, I think it's safe to say that this reading is implying that pride is the primordial character defect behind addiction and alcoholism. And that is something we can do something about. That's a problem within ourselves that we can fix. So what is this step trying to teach me? I think this also loops back to something we've been talking about over the past couple of days, is that you can ask for help, but if you don't accept the help, nothing is going to change. And accepting the help comes with willingness, which we were supposed to have mustered up in step 6 in preparation for this step. But that's where I think the difference between character defects and shortcomings actually matters. Whereas one is an attitude or value, and the other is actual behavior driven by that attitude or value. So if the attitude of pride is not removed, you will not have the humility to accept the help when you ask for it. And that's why I believe step 6 comes before step 7. So why would this reading help someone working this step? Well, it's important to know that the entire program hinges upon this axis of humility and pride. I think that helps anyone and everyone working any of the steps. Now we can be aware of how dangerous pride can be anytime we see it crop up in our lives, and the alarm bells can go off. Pride means failure and relapse. Beware. Ask for God's help immediately. So, how does this prepare me for the next step? I think it's the same idea as yesterday and the day before that pride plus amends equals fights, not hugs and forgiveness. So let's move on to faith. What is God teaching me through this? I think that pride is dangerous, very dangerous, that it lies to us and it destroys our entire character in one fell swoop, just like it did to Satan, and that the only antidote is true humility. But that there is an answer, a direct answer, and an opposing force in the universe. This is useful to know because it creates a complete behavioral model. When you know both sides of the extremes, you can find where you are on the spectrum. Now you have a measuring tool to evaluate where you stand and where you still need to go, and more importantly, where you want to go, towards pride or towards humility. Remember, God favors the humble. Humility allows for God's grace to flow through you, which also says that the inverse is also true. And pride blocks the flow of that channel. So when you ask for humility and the removal of pride, you not only receive grace for your behavior, but you also receive favor. Isaiah 66:2 says, "These are the ones I look on with favor, those who are humble and contrite in spirit and who tremble at my word." Now, what is God's favor? It refers to unearned divine kindness, approval, and blessings bestowed by God. It represents a tangible assurance of God's presence, guidance, and active involvement in someone's life, often providing them with the strength or opportunities needed to fulfill a specific purpose, like breaking the chains of addiction and overcoming adversity. Favor is God's delight in showing goodwill to humanity. That's cool. So, one takeaway to carry into today that inspires hope is that, to use AA terms, there is a solution. Yes, pride is dangerous, and yes, it can take you out at the knees, but you have control over that. God placed a sword in your hand to slay that particular dragon, and all you have to do is use it. So I find that incredibly hopeful. A quick note for the newcomer, the most important person in the room, be very wary of pride. Pride tells you things like, I don't have to go to meetings, I'm fine. And we all know what happens to people who stop coming to meetings. They never see what happens to people who stop going to meetings. So just keep coming and keep learning. Today's lesson is an important one. So a question to leave you all with is, where am I still insisting on doing things my way, even though my way has already proven it cannot bring me peace? Thank you so much for listening today and for allowing me to be a part of your journey. I am your grateful neighborhood addict named Connor, and I'm wishing you another day gratefully sober. Until tomorrow.